and good evening, everybody. It is Steve with Real Progressives. Folks, a lot has happened. A lot has been going on. We lose a Koch brother. I'm sorry. I never celebrate death, but let's just say that the world became just a little less evil today. A little bit less evil. I hope that the brothers are able to join one another and spend a long time together. They have done an incredible amount of harm to this country. They have hurt millions and millions of people. And with that, I won't be sorry to see them gone. I won't be sorry to see them gone. The good news, and it seems very timely, if you will, the good news is that Bernie Sanders came out with his Green New Deal, his version of the Green New Deal. And that Green New Deal has a whopping $16 trillion price tag to it. Now, that's a lot of cheddar. No matter how you slice it, that's a lot of cheddar for us little people. For us people who earn very small amount of wages and can't even imagine making our bills. But for the federal government, you've never once heard them complain about the cost of the F-35, and you've never heard them once complain about the costs of war. You've never heard them complain about the cost of tax cuts, and you've never heard them ever complain about their trips and all of their opportunities for catered sit-ins and all the other optics that they blow huge sums of money on. But you know what? Survival has a price tag. The good news, that price tag doesn't come from tax dollars. That price tag comes from your currency issuing federal government. So what we're going to do tonight, I'm going to read off a little bit about Bernie Sanders' Green New Deal. And I want you all to think about this. I want you to think long and hard. A Green New Deal is everything rolled into one. It's not a little program over here and a little program over there. It's a real big bang. A big bang akin to the original New Deal. Many, many parts, many, many things that change the way we live, that fundamentally change the destitution quotient for the average person. I want you to understand that as Real Progressives, as a policy group, we look at policy and we say, what is the most progressive aspect? We don't endorse candidates. We can't endorse candidates. But we can certainly point out the policies. So let's go to it. This right here is just a really, really wonderful article. And it is in The Verge. It says, Bernie Sanders' Green New Deal is the most progressive in the race. Sanders' proposal is controversial, even among environmentalists. Bernie Sanders just dropped his version of what a Green New Deal would look like if he becomes president. And it looks incredibly ambitious. The proposed set of federal policies aims to simultaneously avert a climate crisis while building up a green economy that protects workers and vulnerable communities. That's a mouthful, isn't it? At $16.3 trillion spent over 15 years, Sanders' climate deal is by far the priciest of all the Democratic candidates left in the primary race. It's also arguably the most progressive. pushing for the U.S. to have a carbon-free economy by 2050. The senator from Vermont also set a 2030 benchmark goal of reaching 100% renewable energy in the country's two most carbon-intensive industries, transportation and the power sector, by investing in solar, wind, and geothermal power. Sanders' plan would also declare climate change a national emergency, bring the U.S. back on board with the Paris Climate Agreement, and commit $200 billion in funding to help developing nations cut their emissions and adapt to the effects of climate change. According to the United Nations International Panel of Scientists, in order to prevent the worst effects of climate change, the world needs to become carbon neutral by mid-century. That goal allows countries to continue emitting planet-warming gases as long as they're removing the same amount from the atmosphere. It's considered a more realistic approach to keeping the planet from warming beyond the crucial tipping point identified by the United Nations scientists, especially since we're not on track to meet goals set in the Paris Climate Agreement as it is. Sanders' aims are more ambitious because, unlike the United Nations and other presidential hopefuls, he's looking to fully stop burning fossil fuels and isn't relying on commonly discussed alternatives to reach his objective. To get to our goal of 100% sustainable energy, we will not rely on any false solutions like nuclear geoengineering, carbon capture and sequestration, or trash incinerators, Sanders writes in his almost 14,000-word manifesto. Sanders is the first candidate to explicitly lay out those measures in his plan for a Green New Deal when Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat, New York, and Senator Ed Markey, Democrat, Massachusetts, introduced a resolution for a Green New Deal in February this year. Both lawmakers skirted the issue, leaving the nuclear energy and carbon capture on the table. I've got a different take on that, but we'll get to that. Nuclear energy, geoengineering, and carbon capture are all controversial. Nuclear energy opponents worry about its safety and what to do about nuclear waste. Geoengineering, or using technology to manipulate the climate, is still unproven. Carbon capture technologies, which take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, are really expensive and nascent too. And critics say that the reliance on these measures doesn't address the concerns of communities living near power plants, pipelines, fossil fuel deposits, uranium mines, and toxic dumps. The question that remains is whether Sanders could actually achieve his lofty aims. First, it comes with a mammoth $16.3 trillion price tag. Rival Joe Biden's climate proposal is just $1.7 trillion. And even though Sanders has put his foot down on nuclear energy, carbon capture, and geoengineering, not even all environmentalists are on board. We need to have every option on the table, Joshua Freed, Vice President for Clean Energy at the Democratic think tank Third Way, the fucking third fucking way, okay, told the New York Times. The Sanders plan appears to be too big, but it's not serious. Time the fuck out. Time out. Oh my God. Freed's concerns allude to larger tensions between progressives and moderates within the Democratic Party, as others hope that Sanders' moonshot will push policy toward bolder climate measures. Adrian Salazar, climate campaign strategist at progressive think tank Demos, tells The Verge, a move to get the U.S. fully decarbonized by 2050 shifts the narratives. That's a new standard for what is actually bold and ambitious. Now, folks, I'm going to tell you right now. First things first. Ask yourself, do you really want a Green New Deal? Do you really want to hand to your children a society and a environment and a planet that not only is hospitable and habitable, but is also fair and balanced and provides equality. Ask yourself that. Then, ask yourself this. Every time policies come up, every single time, do you ask yourself, oh my God, how are we going to pay for it? I know you do. Most people do. Unfortunately, we never ask that question in times of war, do we? Ever, by the way. Oh, snap, guys. Not a good time for war. We're a few tax dollars short of a tank. We don't have the bombs. We've run out of money. It doesn't happen. Why is that? Because we can't run out of money. Unless we make a political choice to do so. We literally can never run out of money. We are the creator of the U.S. dollar. Now, you may have thought all this MMT stuff that we've talked about in the past didn't matter. Maybe you were one of those people that opted to think that it was an irrelevant subject. Maybe you even ran around with the cool kids and thought it was a cult. Maybe you did that. Shame on you if you did. Because you're probably one of the people that will stand in the way of us surviving this environmental disaster. You may be one of the people that is literally preventing our children from surviving. I'm not sure that is something to celebrate. Unless, of course, you're just one of those type of people. But for the rest of us, the normal people, the people that love their children, and the people that don't have children but love other people's children, the people that just aren't assholes, to you, modern monetary theory explains exactly how Bernie Sanders' plan can be paid for. In fact, his economist that helps him put these things together is one of the world's leading voices in modern monetary theory, interestingly enough. Bernie Sanders, the most popular politician in the entire nation and possibly around the world, has hired and relies upon a modern monetary theory economist. And many of his own supporters refuse to learn it. In fact, some of them equate harsh language and fights within activist communities as an excuse to not learn how to fund a Green New Deal. That makes them complicit in our downfall should we not be able to pass this. One of the most important things a progressive can do is remember what they're fighting for. Not who they like better, not who they like hanging out with, not who they want to curry favor with, but what exactly a progressive agenda looks like. Real progressives prides ourselves on being true north. We don't waver, we don't deviate, we don't start making concessions before the time. We're still in a primary, number one, but it wouldn't even matter. We don't change because we know what we stand for. And we've stood for a Green New Deal before there was a Green New Deal. And now there's a Green New Deal proposal out there. And it's going to be paid for by congressional authorization, by appropriating the funds. Any taxes that are thrown out there as pay-fors are merely optics for the people that refuse to do the homework. The good news is Bernie is doing his homework. The better news is he's got Kelton in his ear. The even better news is that he is expanding the Overton window for all the progressive policies we may all advocate for the very important things that occur in our lives, our families' lives, our children's lives, our co-workers' lives, you name it, our communities. A federal job guarantee is part of this. Well, as you well know, a federal job guarantee is something that Martin Luther King Jr. supported. It's also something that modern monetary theory has as its base key to creating a superior automatic stabilizer to solve forever the problem of involuntary unemployment. It is a part of the Green New Deal. They're looking at making it a part of a green job initiative. They are looking at ways of getting democracy to the communities, to making communities accountable for what jobs would be there for the job guarantee, whether it be redefining all sorts of work, redefining what it means to work so that the capitalist class doesn't get to define it for us. We're not built for profit. We are built to survive. We are built to thrive. And a job guarantee fundamentally changes what work is. For those people who say it's make work, that's an absolute lie. It's not just a mischaracterization. It's a brazen lie. Because the local communities will democratically, you like that word democratically, right? Will democratically decide what jobs they wish for their community, because everyone will be guaranteed a right to a job. And you better get your butt down to the town halls to help weigh in. You better help make sure that each level of government is accountable and serves you, because they will select these jobs. And it could be beautiful. It could be serving your family. It could be taking care of a sick elder. It could also be helping families have free child care in their communities. There's so many things it could do. It's as broad and vast as our ability to think about what our communities need. At a living wage with federal benefits. You want to talk about competition for private sector labor? They will have to meet or beat that wage to be able to hire you out of the job guarantee. Everyone, including those who have been marginally left behind, generational poverty, failed the lottery of birth, everyone will be able to have a living wage with benefits. Think about that. This is what it means to be a real progressive. Not a fake one. Selling out the poor, selling out the climate, selling out future generations with limp, weak, fetid, feckless centrism. No. We're talking about doing exactly what needs to be done to make things right. $16.3 trillion is a drop in the bucket, or as they say, a few keystrokes. Because when Congress authorizes this, the money will be spent. Period. It'll be created irrespective of tax receipts, because that is how all spending is done at the federal level. And the taxes that come out will serve to stave off inflation. They'll be deleted, as all taxes are at the federal level. And the beautiful thing about this is, you've said you wanted it all this time. Now it's time to prove it. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a great night, everyone.